I'm a writer, right? So whenever I watch content, I'm kind of thinking from a different perspective than maybe the average viewer will. Not to sound pretentious, but like, you know, if I'm watching a TV show, I'm kind of a little bit more hyper aware of certain things, of like what's the word, like tropes, or like, specific ways people treat characters or whatever. And I feel like I would like to see a lot more. I'd like to see a lot more new things. And now that sounds a little bit vague, so I'll kind of break that down a little bit more.
Hmm.
I think I I, I think Hollywood, or the entertainment industry in general, has hit a brick wall in the sense of like being out, going out of the box is kind of taboo now, because when you go out of the box, you are more liable to alienate people. I wouldn't even say offend. I'll say alienate.
What
You're more likely to alienate people.
what would you qualify as going out of the box?
Well, I'd consider going out of the box. Hmm, that's a good question. I gotta think. Hmm. I think,
Because I remember I was watching a video and the video made a point of how we don't make a lot of comedy movies, like big budget or medium budget comedies
yes,
anymore. And a lot like people would point the finger as the culture is too tender. There's a lot of people are hyper aware of global atrocities at the time, so we can't make fun of what like the people would probably find less fortunate or people that are
yeah.
different. Is that what you are
I
probably getting at, or would you agree to that?
a little bit. I agree with that. Usually, the quick tangent. Like usually when people talk about comedy nowadays, cancellation is part of it. But comedy has always been like that. There's never
Hmm.
not been a time where you couldn't get quote unquote canceled for making a joke. And it's kind of a hot take, but like I think you do need both sides of that. You do need the badasses who will be like, "Oh man, like I'll drop the N bomb on stage or whatever," and then you need the people who will be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, reel that back, bro. You can't, like, you're white, don't do that." You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like you do need both sides to make this comedy thing work, because you need the lines to cross over. You know what I mean? It's funny. Like people can be straight up funny, and I think you can be funny without having to make fun of people or whatever. But there is comedy and being shocking,
So we
you know,
so comedy needs both sides of
to
the
work
spectrum
for
to work.
sure.
Like the people
I
who needs to
Yes,
like need to be tender, and the other side that needs to find out what is pushing people's buttons.
yes, I do
Where's the
think
comedy at?
I do think that the sensitive cancel culture folks that like people want to get rid of so badly are needed, and I do think the edgy Nazi white supremacists, or anti-Semitic, whatever you want to call these comedians nowadays, you need those guys too, or
Like,
whatever, because you can't be too sensitive, or else you're not going to do anything, and you can't be too badass, or we have no order. You know?
would you say the middle ground, the sensitive, the tough, the middle ground between the tough and the tender, is a good barometer of where a certain culture, I wouldn't say like a nation, because I feel like since we are living in America and times are pretty crazy at the moment,
No,
would you
everything's
say
going
like,
right. Everything's going okay.
yeah, everything's okay in America, nothing bad happens in America ever?
Nothing has ever happened bad in America in a billion years.
Never.
Never.
Oh man. So would you say that? the the space between the tough and the tender um, would be a good barometer or an overhead view of where the public sentiment lies.
So to say that question back to you, are you
Yeah.
essentially asking me, is the middle ground where is that how the public feels? Is the
Yes. Yeah.
public in the middle ground?
Yeah. I apologize.
Eh,
I'm asking as my brain develops its.
Question. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
it's
get it. I
question.
get. Listen, it's your show, buddy.
All of
I
this is
have to
off the
understand.
cuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but well, I think yes, I do think that your average Americans are in the middle for a lot of things. Um, Now the loud minority is a phrase that is over said a lot. Like people say that a lot, the loud minority,
Mm-hmm.
without not really knowing what that means. I do think that there are more than a minority of people who feel certain ways about things nowadays. However, though, I do think there's enough of the general public who are who are willing to hear you out or willing to stay in the middle on certain topics. And I feel like that that may not be the majority like it used to be. I do believe that back in the day it was more majority to be in the middle on things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to. I think manager my manager when I worked at a car dealership, he told me something. He was like the 70-year-old white dude, right? And so like sometimes I just ask him questions or whatever, and he'd tell me about stuff. And I asked him like, "Who'd you vote for?" or whatever, and he wouldn't tell me. And then he said like, "Listen, Matt, like the two things you don't talk about are religion and politics."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh," I'm like, "That's interesting because that's not how everybody else feels." You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I do believe that there was a time period where if you did bring up one or two of those things, you know what I mean, you were being socially awkward. Like you were deliberately trying to start stuff, and people knew that. You know. Um, Nowadays, though, you do have to have an opinion on a lot of things, and a lot of people won't let you not take a side. Even the government is very black and white on things where they'll be like, okay, you have to feel a certain way on this, or not, or you're on the other side. Either you're on the right side of history or you're on the wrong side of history. You know what I mean? That's where the American government gets most of the bread and butter is making things black and white. You know what I mean? And I do think that nowadays you do have to be on one side or another side, but there is a, a healthy middle that that is willing to hear you out. I think what I'm trying to say with my rambling is that people are not as uh, cut and dry, black and white as you know one side wants to tell you or the other side wants to tell you. I do believe there's people who are out there who still do want to play neutral, play Sweden or Switzerland, I mean, and try to figure out what side is better, which side is worse, or both sides are worse, or we need a new system. You know what I mean? I do
Mm-hmm.
think that people are willing to hear things out, and I think people are willing to negotiate more than certain sides want to lead you on to believe.